Mr. Chairman, I know how passionate you are about this issue before us today since your days as a practicing attorney back in 1983 when the IRS Supreme Court adopted easy-to-understand wording for jury instructions. Plain language is essential to many Americans because it gets the message across in the shortest possible time. More people are able to understand your message, and there is less chance that documents will be misunderstood. Having said that, I want to put a couple of questions before the panel and really want to focus it on what's happening with the Small Business Administration. Are there regulations that you have identified that are the hardest for small business to understand, number one? Can you give a specific example of how SBA forms could be improved while collecting information required by law or regulation? And could you suggest one or more ways that the SBA's website could be more understandable?
Well, the only one I can take on is the website, because I did look at the website extensively as I was preparing for this. And like many government websites, in fact, like most government websites, there is too much stuff on there. They seem to be giving you a dissertation when all you want is an answer. The SBA needs to think about why people come to their website and what they want. They do not want to come to the website to read a lot about SBA. Most federal agencies write their websites by telling the audience what they want the audience to know, and that is not why people use the web today. They want a quick, short answer, and essentially, as with most government websites, they need to sit back and think, why are people coming to their website? What do they want? And let's give it to them in the shortest, most direct manner.
I guess no one else wants to take on those questions right now.
Well, the only thing I would add, from an SBA standpoint, that's not where I spend most of my time in visiting with the members of the NASE. I have dealt with a number of small business owners who have requested financing through an SBA preferred lender, and just the paperwork itself via the website as well as the forms are just extremely complicated. I think as with IRS rules and regulations, at some point over the years, new regulations have been added on top of new regulations on top of new regulations. And then one regulation may conflict with another regulation, and the verbiage had to be such so that the conflict could be resolved somehow. And what that means, I don't have any idea. I just spoke in non-plain language. So as with the IRS rules, I think the SBA lending, even at the financial institution that is a preferred lender, that communication with the small business could be dramatically improved by just an emphasis on plain language. And if that could happen and funds could be made available to small business, now we're back to creating jobs, which I think is what we're supposed to be doing.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
And I would just add that to give some specific examples, which is what you asked for, I'd feel like I need to go back and review the SBA's website and so forth, which I did not do in preparation for this hearing. But I do think it's worth saying that, as I think Mr. Hall mentioned, most of the regulations that directly affect the small business community don't come from the SBA. In fact, there's very little regulatory authority that's housed at the SBA. But they do provide a great deal of information that ought to be as clear and as plainly presented as possible. And I am quite certain that, like every other federal agency, they have a ways to go in that regard.
Well, thank you very much for that. And, Mr. Hall, I understood what you were saying, even though it wasn't plain. What does that say about me? Dr. Cheek, just another question. How do you reconcile the need to write one regulation for multiple audiences? For instance, the small business managers, accountants, lawyers, and government officials.
Okay, well, one thing that we would say in plain language is that you really can't write one document to multiple audiences. You can write different parts of one document to multiple audiences, but having written regulations for a large part of my federal career, which was 25 years long, I've seen a lot of regulations where the agency would attempt to mix audiences. I spent most of my career in Interior, so I wrote a lot of regulations dealing with land, and they would talk about landowners and they would talk about permittees who might not be landowners, and they would mix everything up. If you're writing to multiple audiences in one document, you have to be very clear to separate the requirements for each audience into different sections of the document. It's not that complex. It's an issue of organization, and a lot of government documents are just not well organized, but it can be done.